All right, peace, family. You already know what it is. Six Dynasty Media. As always, when we start this off, I ask that everybody like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We have two guests on the line from Canaanland. The Canaanland Moors, the brothers came through. They wanted to respond to a few things and adjust a few things as they see it. So, I definitely reached out to them. And, like I told y'all yesterday, the door was open. I wanted to allow them to be able to come through and, speak their piece and, basically let us know how they see things or how things are from their perspective versus what we've been hearing from Javen lately. So, peace, brothers, Islam. I'd like to like y'all to introduce yourselves to the listening audience.
Peace and love. This is Brother Cujo L, calling from Canaanland, which is misnomer Canada. Peace and love.
Okay.
Peace and love. This brother Yusuf L, calling from Northwest Morocco.
Okay, that's what's up. All right, so basically, the way that I actually got familiar with your channel was I know I've seen it before. But the way that I got familiar with the things was, like I said, by way of somebody screenshotted me or sent me a post after Javen had did a video, and I went and checked it out. So for a disclaimer, I just want to state for the record that I really don't have a position on this particular discussion other than based off of what people have told me. And as some people in your comment section said things I've seen as far as police encounters with brothers who are pushing the sovereignty thing and all of the IDs and things like that. So I know you can give me a better understanding of what's going on, what's happening right now from your perspective. But everything that I've seen and everything that I said is basically based off of that. Now, my knowledge of sovereignty, my knowledge of what people consider to be paperwork and things like that, I'm not going to sit up here and act like I know a whole bunch about it. So I think that's what's dope about the dialogue with you brothers today. I'll get a clear understanding of what it is that you are teaching and trying to tell the people when it comes to things like sovereignty.
Right. Well, let's start there.
Okay.
First of all, we want to rise and give honors to the Prophet Noble Jawali, and we want to say Islam to all the Moors who, out there, all the unconscious Moors that are becoming conscious. Islam to y'all. One perspective that causes a lot of confusion is the idea of status correction and all that, and people always bring up people selling packages and whatever like that, right? Let's keep it real simple. There's an individual by the name of Cassius Clay, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows him, right? And he said, that name is a slave name. Don't call me by that name. Because he was boxing the dude that kept bringing up that name, that slave name. Right? And he went in the ring and busted his ass for calling him a slave name. And after that, everybody accepted him as Muhammad Ali. No questions asked. No paperwork. No nationality card. No nothing. He just did that just on his own volition of recognizing that, hold on a second, if I have a name of somebody who I say used to be my master, logically, when you come into knowledge of self, you should want to change that name. Why would you keep the same name? Right? So don't think that, status correction is, a Moorish thing or something like that. It's a concept that everybody adopts. Sean Carter did a status correction to Jay-Z. No cards, no papers, but nobody's not debating him about how come he has that name, because you already know why. It's the same thing with Negro, black, colored people recognizing that those brands are slave brands And our real identity as Negro, black, colored people is Moors. And once you have that as a concept, now we could move ahead and do this, because everybody is calling themselves one thing. And now we have unity. Keep in mind, I didn't bring up Islam, I didn't bring up religions, I didn't bring up anything. All we're talking about is changing our status from one condition to another condition. The best way to do that, and again, using Muhammad Ali as an example, is changing your concepts. Where the mind goes, the body's going to follow. And I'll yield the floor, please.
Okay. So basically, when we talk about status correction in this conversation, basically at this point we're talking about name change. Like I've had my name changed before, but there's times that I changed my name and was told when I told individuals to call me by a different name or a different title. And that in the sense of this conversation, that's what we're talking about when we talk about status correction.
Right.
Okay. So it isn't necessarily saying that I went, through the court procedures to have my name changed for status correction.
So now let's look at that. Now, if, again, using Muhammad Ali as an example, he didn't go to court to change his name. He just told them, this is what my name is.
Right.
He didn't go to court for them to do that. But also, when you look at it deeper, he really did a name correction into a Moorish status, because Ali is a Moorish name. He could have picked any name, but he picked the name Ali.
Okay.
Which goes back to the 5 names of the Moors: El, Bey, Day, Al, and Ali, which are really the 5 civilized tribes. And then from those, everything else came out under that. And the real Aboriginal indigenous people are the people who are classified as Negro, black, colored people, which is why we don't have to go to the court to change our name, because it's not a change, it's a correction. Change implies somebody else is doing it. Correction, you're doing it yourself. When people say, I'm gonna go get a name change, right?
Mm-hmm.
They forget how they lost their name. The European didn't go to a court to make Toby be Toby. He didn't go to court to do that. So why should we have to go to court to correct the wrong? And this is the concept that we use, right? But then people are going to look at more as like, we don't know what we're talking about, and we're trying to do this, and we're trying to do some European perspective of something. When that's not really what's going on. I mean, there was so-called slaves who, in order to get out of slavery, they got freeman papers. And they were using anybody. They were just telling them, oh, you're a freeman, let me borrow your papers. They go to a court to do that.
In a sense, I can get what you're saying, because like it's certain things that I have an issue with us having to like go to the government in order to have certain changes that we want to see accepted. Like one of them for me is like marriage. Like I had a big discussion about this with some sisters. Like I don't necessarily feel like we have to go get the government's stamp of approval to consider ourselves married. We can have the ceremony and we come together in a common bond together, but that piece of paper it doesn't dictate whether or not we are married or not. You know what I mean? So I definitely understand that. And as far as name change,
and that's a good example. You know what I mean? That's a good example of why go to them to do it for you. That doesn't make sense. Why do you need a middleman to tell you and your wife that you guys are together?
Right. Right. See, we agree on that.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, it's in, and you know, we're speaking today on this platform on the layman perspective. We're not even going into what the process really is if you want to correct your status. We're just speaking on a base level, using base examples, so nobody could debate that there's something wrong with status correction. You know what I mean? Like even for yourself, I'm pretty sure were you Ahmadi when you were born?
No.
All right. So like, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure Ahmadi is not a European name.
No, it's not.
I'm pretty sure the name that you're coming from is a European name.
Definitely.
All right. Status correction. Right? You think Javen Bullets is Javen Bullets? That's the name that he was born with? No. He did a status correction. You know, how come he's not debating himself?
Yeah. You know, right? you know, I mean...
Right, now again, remember that we're speaking layman. We're not saying that having Ahmadi is correct. Because, you know, that's not really a status correction, really.
Right.
Because that name isn't really tied to this land. So you could only do the status correction in the land that is yours. So all these people that say, you know, they're Kemetic or they're African and whatever, and then they adopt those names, but they're in America, they're committing a fraud. This is why when the so-called Ashkenazis corrected their status to Israelite or quote-unquote Jew, they had to go take Palestine because there was no land called Israelite for them to claim. They had to go hijack Palestine's land in order to create Israel that they have right now. Because that's not a reality. That wasn't a real, you know, no different than Liberia. Negroes from America go to Africa. The United States creates a country called Liberia, and now they think they're African. So Liberia is created by the United States. It's not an African country. So when they bring up Dr. York and Dr. York talk about, well, he's a Liberian diplomat or whatever, that's a fraud. He should have stuck to the fact that he was a Moor. That's why he got jammed up. Because he jumping all over the place. When he made a claim, they had land and all that stuff as Moors in Atlanta. Malachi York had all that land as a Moor. It wasn't as a black, as an African, as somebody from some other planet or whatever. He got all that stuff as a Moor. You told me that we can't save ourselves as being Moors. But then they railroad him, trump up some charges on him, have him look like some pedophile and all that stuff, and make people abandon their Moorish nationality instead of just abandoning that man who did that dirt. If somebody Chinese does dirt, they're not saying they're not Chinese because a Chinese guy killed 500 people, so we're not Chinese tomorrow. When do we play that stupid stuff there? When we are people.
So when you talk about names that basically apply to people in this land, and we're talking about, you know, the America, what names would those what would those names be?
Well, from the perspective of where in America are we referring to? Because America is broad.
Okay, let's just say
right, so you know, Brazilians and Cubans and those people, they have their own names that they're free under with those names there. They look like us or whatever, or they might have a different language or whatever like that, but they have their own quote unquote jurisdiction. Right?
Okay.
Where their name is there, their language is there, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and then when you go to Mexico, same thing. They have a flag that's theirs, you know what I mean? They have a language that's theirs, they have a culture that's theirs. And then you get to North America and the islands and Canada, and it comes into this 500 different flags. But all the people look the same. So, as they say in Masonry that it's a secret society. One of the secrets of Masonry is that geography got changed, place names got changed in order to hide the corruption. Above Mexico is Morocco, which is where they get America from, because there's no way that some European named Amerigo is the reason why over here it's called America. There has to be something more than that. It can't just be that. Because first of all, his name wasn't Amerigo. If you research him, that wasn't his name. So clearly that story is false. But when we go into the geography and you find out that there's places here called Moab and places here called Memphis, places here called, Canaan, you realize that our jurisdiction spans the globe. And the last name that our people across the world were recognized as were Moors before we fell into slavery. So in order for us to get back to where we were, we have to start with the name that we fell as. Everybody knows 1492 was the last stronghold of dark-skinned people on the planet Earth. Remember, Africa was already colonized, 1500s and all that. Berlin Conference and all that already dealt with that. The last stronghold were the Moors. And when they conquered Granada and exiled the Moors, majority of them got in their boat and then they just came back over here. Because all of this is our land, as Moors, not as Africans, not as black people, not as the Aboriginal indigenous people. We have a claim to the world. So Moors is that name.
So what?
Any derivation after that, cool. It's not an issue. But what is the bloodline that you're claiming? Are you claiming Aboriginal and Indigenous bloodline? If you are claiming Aboriginal and Indigenous bloodline, then you would have to be Aboriginal Indigenous. You can't say you came over here on a slave ship if you're Aboriginal Indigenous. And you can't play both. It's one or the other. And if you did come over here on a slave ship, why are you still over here? Shouldn't you have already? It's 400 years we're talking about. You haven't gone back to where you came from yet? You still over here playing around? But then again, when they go over there, the people over there are going to tell them, you're not from over here. You're from over there. Just ask anybody from the continent. They'll tell you, yeah, we're brothers and sisters, but we know you guys are from America. You're not from no Africa.
So when we talk about last names, like I see a lot of Moorish brothers have the names like Ali, El, or Bey. Where do these last names come from?
These names were the titles of the Moors. El goes back into ancient history with the Canaanites. Everybody knows that. That's not something we're making up. El goes back to the Canaanites. That's before some Europeans. Right? So that's where that comes from. Ali, that's one of the names of Allah. So who knows how far back that name goes? And that's not what Moors say. This is world history that everybody knows. The name Ali is an ancient name. The name El is an ancient name. The name Bey, when translated, means governor. So anybody who has the quote-unquote title Bey, regardless of where they were in the world, they were a governor of a particular territory if they had the name Bey, which is why Moors take the position of identifying themselves with these names, one, because of their historical accuracy to a name that we can claim as dark-skinned people, that nobody can refute. Everybody knows the Els, the Beys, and the Alis are dark-skinned people. The world knows this, right? But if we're taking the position that those names came from Turks Those stuff came from pale Arabs. Some Saudi Arabian created whatever. People are warped in their mind, which lets us know that they don't study, because if they knew real history, they would know that the Arabs were dark-skinned people. If they studied like they say that they do, they would go to Dr. Ben's book, Africa, Mother of Western Civilization, on page 546, and I quote, "Western historians continually try to impress everyone that the Moors were an Arab people, carefully forgetting that there were two types of Moors. The African Moors, the first to enter Iberia in 711 with Tariq. African Moors. So if anybody says that they're African, according to Dr. Ben, you're a Moor." Quote, "There were amalgamated African Asian Moors, the offsprings of African and Asian Muslims. The Asians, originally from Arabia and other areas around the Fertile Crescent, entered Iberia 12 years later, 723 CE. So if Dr. Ben is saying that Africans are Moors and Asians are Moors, and then Nation of Islam is saying that they're black Asiatics, and Asiatic means that you're Asian, then doesn't that mean everybody's Moors? And that should be the name?
Well, I mean, I'll say it like this, because I was a part of the nation. Like, they believe that certain parts of the planet was called Asia, and Africa came afterwards. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, but that's my opinion. Yet, okay, so if we are identifying Moorish people in Africa, then how would people in, let's just deal specifically with North America, how does that make these people who may say that they are Aboriginal or indigenous align with the Moorish concepts? Like with these people,
this is where Washita comes in.
Okay.
Everybody knows the Washita Moors. They're not even a secret to black people. They know about these people. Everybody knows that there were people in the Americas who were dark-skinned people that agreed that they didn't come over here on a slave ship. And there's, we used again Waka Flocka that came out and told everybody that he's Aboriginal and Indigenous, and half the people in this room or whatever are Aboriginal and Indigenous too. That's not to take away from anything. That's not to, make people abandon what they know or what they thought or whatever. It's called evolution. The whole purpose of life is to evolve, not to remain stagnant, not to be black for being black since the 60s. We're still black today. You didn't move from that yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then all these other people that are nationalities, because remember, everybody in the world has a nationality except these people in North America who don't want to recognize that above Mexico is Morocco, so that means you're Moroccan, so that means you're Moors. And this is a documented fact, world history, but again, because of the Reconstruction era that people think have to do with some building up or something, the Reconstruction era is erasing information so that our people, specifically in North America, could be in this dumbed-down mindset that they're in right now, that they're in Morocco, thinking that they're in the United States, but they would never call themselves United Statesian. But Brazilians are from Brazil, and Cubans are from Cuba, but there's no United Statesians from the United States. But there's this place called United States, and everybody agrees that this is a country or whatever. But there's nobody called United Statesian from there? How is that not making bells go off in people's head that something's wrong here? Why is it that there's a $1 bill that's in circulation right now that has an eagle on it and a pyramid on it, and people are trying to say that the pyramid belongs to the Illuminati, but that's what the eagle, the people who are in control of the government right now, they stand in front of the eagle. They don't stand in front of the pyramid. Why would they stand in front of the pyramids when they have nothing to do with pyramids? They know that they have nothing to do with pyramids. Only people that have something to do with pyramids is dark-skinned people. But then again, we have to ask the question, why are they talking about pyramids in America if pyramids are supposed to be Egyptian? So, maybe it's because in Stolen Legacy, George G.M. James' book, he got murdered for writing this book. Right? And nobody wants to talk about his book, but they're talking about everybody else's book, but they're not going to talk about George G.M. James' Stolen Legacy. When he states in that book that the Moors were the custodians of African culture. If the Moors are custodians of African culture, which culture are they not in possession of? None. They have everything in their possession as the Moors. Because remember, that was the last name that we had from 711 to 1492 across the entire world. The people in power were known as Moors. Everybody else, they were just some tribal doing whatever it is that they do. The people who were in power, that were interacting with other nations in the world, other empires, interacting with empires, not local gang fights, like not that small stuff, block to block, hood to hood stuff. We're talking about international level. It was Moors, and Moors were the rulers during that time. This is not opinion. This is documented fact. Just go research, Google Moors, and see how much stuff comes up about Moors.
All right, let me ask you this, all right? Because you brought up the Washita Moors, right? Well, I'm trying to figure out if they're saying that they are Aboriginal, or are they saying? Let me ask this first: are the Washita Moors saying that they are Aboriginal, or are they saying that they are indigenous?
The Washita Moors are saying, well, not even the Washita Moors are saying. It is known, you can ask the UN, that the Washita is known as the oldest indigenous people in the Americas. Now, when you check the history of the Washita, tied to that history is the Olmecs, which everybody knows. An Olmec looks like a dark-skinned person, big nose, broad lips, and dark skin. Right? There's documented fact that this land was all one landmass at one time. So an ocean doesn't mean that we're in separate places. Just like a line, a dotted line across land doesn't mean that is the border. If people want to think that that's what that means, that's okay. They can think that, but that's not a reality. So when we say, you know, Washita Moors, you're talking about a conglomerate of Aboriginal indigenous people that have dark skin. You're talking about a nation of people who stood up to the same U.S. corporation that's around today, stood up to them when they tried to steal their land, and the people, after they won, stayed Negro black colored. They didn't claim who they were. Which is what it always comes down to, right? Khalid went to the meeting with everybody there, all the different groups and whatever like that were there, in his general uniform, told everybody that he's a Moor, and he got sense enough to know that he's a Moor. That's Khalid Muhammad, who everybody says they love him and they, you know what I mean, revere him. He's the Black Power general and all that. Okay, well, if he said that he's a Moor, shouldn't that maybe register with people who say that they back him, that they should probably consider what he's saying? And then how come nobody's going at him for being a sovereign citizen, whatever? He said that he's a Moor. How come they don't go at Khalid? How come they don't go at Dr. Ben? He wrote in his book that Africans are Moors. And if Moors are a sovereign citizen or whatever, then how come they're not going at Dr. Ben? How come they didn't realize in the Alim Bey versus Seti debate that Alim Bey used Seti's teacher's book, which pretty much destroyed him? Forget about all the other stuff that they talked about. The fact that Seti is a student of Dr. Ben, according to him. He went to visit Dr. Ben in the hospital, gave him fiat to pay for his, term care in the nursing home and all whatever that they did. They wrecked Dr. Ben. But then Alim Bey is going to use Dr. Ben to prove that we're Moors, and everybody just pretend like that didn't happen. Which would mean that he won the debate, because, if I'm using your teacher to prove your stuff wrong, then clearly you don't even study your own teacher's stuff. How are we supposed to take you credible when you don't even study your own teacher's stuff? But this is what the quote-unquote, upload a video stuff has created. People who don't study, people who are just learning off of emotionalism, they're not learning off of facts. This is why somebody like Haven Bullets could put up all these videos every day and never ever once reference a book. Never ever once reference a page number of something to prove his claim. Everything's based on emotion. And Moors, we know, because, our metaphysical studies teaches us that opinion is no proof of truth. If somebody says their opinion, forget what they say, because there's no truth in it.
Let me I just want to ask one more thing before we move on then. So are we saying that the connection between the Washita Moors or the Washita, which we are considering Moors, and I may be putting this in the wrong context, right? But what I'm thinking about is bloodline. What is the bloodline connection between the Moors of antiquity, of ancient times, and the connection of like the Washita Moors, as well as individuals in North America who are claiming to be or saying that they are Moors, and Moors is their nationality?
The blood connection is melanin.
Okay, so
there's no more connected than that.
Okay, so there doesn't have to be like, you know what I mean? Like, how people are getting blood tests trying to find out.
That's a European concept.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to clear that up.
Remember that our mindset's supposed to be that we rule the world. We didn't just rule Africa. It wasn't just our people on the continent of Africa and then the rest of the world is barren. And don't tell me that the rest of the world had Europeans or people who were lighter than how we looked. Because we already know that we've been here before everybody. Hands down. It's not racism, it's not whatever, that's just what it is. You can even go and talk to Jane Elliott. They'll tell you that the black woman is everybody's mom. And she's a European. Scholar on top of that. It's not just some white lady across the street. She's a scholar and she knows. So when we have this idea of, they hear bloodline and then they're going to go get some tests to see where they come from and all that stuff, that's a money grab. All these people got played. Because everybody who got the test back said, oh, I knew I had that. So what do you need the test for?
So basically the complexion of one skin, you know what I mean? Because I believe that, the complexion of the people who were here before, let's just say, a Christian.
Like, look at it like this, right? Look at it like this. People are going to call you light. You're dark skin. Like, there's no light in darkness. There's shades. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if we're saying dark-skinned people, a Moor is any dark-skinned person. dark skin is everything except an albino or a modern European. Because that's the palest that you can get. An albino or a modern European, that's the palest that you can get. But as soon as you have, and don't forget, you have to have the blue eyes and the blonde hair. Melanin recessive. So melanin dominant people is anybody who's darker than them. And we know from the slave history of the one drop rule. One drop of what? Blood makes you a nigger. All you need is one drop. And you're a nigger, according to KKK and whoever else has their kill nigger program. So anybody who has one drop, they don't get a pass. They're getting on the tree. Just like everybody who's darker, that we don't even need a rule to see if they qualify to be on the tree. One drop. What are they talking about? Bloodline. If one drop makes you nigger, and then, you know, nigger doesn't mean whatever, and then black, they're not talking about that. When they say African, then that means synonymous with more. You know what I mean? More was just telling me that. You look up more in Arabic, it goes back to Berber or Barber, which were the Barbary pirates, and then the Barbary treaties. So when you see Barbary treaties, you're thinking about some Arabs, some pale Arabs in the desert or whatever like that, when you're talking about Moors, dark-skinned people. And this is, you know, 1500s, 1400s. We're not even going into ancient history. We're talking about history that people could research right now in their phone. You don't have to go to the library and all that. So the bloodline issue for us has to be looked at with open, throbbing pineal gland. And that's that. The blood is melanin. The blood is not the stuff in the veins. When we say bloodline, we're Moors by bloodline. As soon as you have the concept of blood in the veins, you're thinking like European. And now you have no say. Because everywhere you go is going to be distorted just based on that premise. That bloodline means blood in the veins.
So anyone that's claiming to be indigenous to this land is a Moor. Even if there's, I mean, is there, because you have people who may say that they're indigenous or they're aboriginal to this land who aren't necessarily claiming that Moor nationality.
Right, that they're Moor, yeah, most
right.
definite.
So if you, so
but
anyone that's
but they're claiming that they're aboriginal and indigenous though.
So anyone claiming that is a Moor,
they look at us as brothers. It ain't no, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, you know, when they see Moors, like, oh, you guys aren't the aboriginals. We are. They're embracing us. Like, we know what's up. Oh, you're not saying you're black? All right, 5-5, all around. Let's go to the teepee.
Okay.
Because everybody knows that we're family. Everybody knows that the Moors civilized the world. Forget about what people who don't have any knowledge of what this is, outside people. You know what I mean? Because the most people who talk BS about Moors are people who claim to not be Moors. Well, if you're not a mechanic, why are you talking about cars and stuff? Nobody's going to go ask somebody who's not a mechanic about cars. But everybody's going to ask some Negro, black, colored, African, conscious guy about Moors. Instead of just asking Moors. Who do you already know who we are? We got feathers on. We might have a red flag with a 5-point green star. You know what I mean? You know, you could ask Moors. You don't got to ask black guys. And then what does that say about the people's messed up concept? That they're going to ask black guys about Moors. They're going to ask mechanics about bakery. And they're going to tell them about, yeah, don't worry, just come in the kitchen. Don't worry about washing your hands with greasy hands and stuff like that. Just put your hand in the bowl and mix this stuff up.
Right, yeah. I mean,
we play ourselves. Because remember, everybody knows that, you know, the dark-skinned people are the founders of civilization. That's not a secret. Everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows that these people who were dark-skinned fell out of power, right? on a broad scale, this happened, right? Yes, a lot of it had to do with colonization. You know, Europeans encroaching on other people's land. We know a lot of it had to do with that. But in this day and time, this age that we're living in right now, people see our people in a state of zombieism, in a state of don't know themselves, right? Nobody wants anything to do with us. They'll deal with everybody else before they deal with us because they know. But they also know that these people are the ancient ones that are here again. These people that are classified as Negro black colors, they know that that's Jesus, and that's Muhammad, and that's Buddha come again. If the people aren't living up to the standard, ain't nobody waiting for them. Why? The standards are already set for what we have to do. Again, when you check our history of our people, the timeline stops when we ruled at the fall of the Moors. Right? That's when everything stopped.
Okay.
And like the master teacher, Taj Sweet Day, teaches us that you cannot get up where you didn't fall down. Wherever you fell, that's where you have to get up. Where we fall in history as Moors. So if we're going to rise, we're not going to rise as Kemetic before we rise as Moors. We're not going to rise as Hebrews before we rise as Moors. We're not going to rise as Nuwapians before we rise as Moors. Right? Once we start putting the cart before the horse, we'll start seeing some progress. Until that, we're going to be doing this thing of, you know, we got to have this platform to teach our people because they don't know about whatever, but, you know, Chinese are building whatever, and Indians are doing whatever they're doing, and even Europeans doing whatever, and we're here trying to figure out stuff. Stuff should be figured out by now.
So let me ask this then. Okay, so we have because you mentioned like 1492 and things like that. So like when we talk about the Moors who would have been in, and I'm just putting this in context so everybody, like people in the chat room, you understand it, and then you can clarify it and correct it how you want to. But when we talk about the Moors who were on a continent we know today as Africa, are you I want to see how I want to frame this. I'm talking about slavery right now. Were any of those Moors a part of the transatlantic slave trade in any type of capacity, whether it would be helping to navigate the seas or as being kidnapped and held captive and brought here to what we know as North America, or what you call Morocco?
Right. No doubt.
Okay. Because see that.
Because
go ahead.
We have no problem with accepting the good, the bad, as Moors. Our people, they only want the good stuff of what our people do. They don't want to accept the BS that we did to each other. Right? There's no denial about that. Now, when you talk to European historians, Europeans will tell you that they would rather be under slavery to the Moors than anybody else. So what does that mean about Moors enslaving people? If Europeans are going to tell people that, well, the Moors enslaved people, but when you were enslaved to the Moors, you lived in the castle, you got showers, you got food, you would walk around and stuff like that. You had access to libraries, you could read stuff and all that. It wasn't some slavery like what people have in their mind of what slavery is when you were under slavery of the Moors. Right? And again, when you do the geographical mapping of the slave castles where they took the slaves from to go to these quote unquote transatlantic slave trade, whatever that people want to talk about, all those castles are in African places. And the argument that people bring is that Africans aren't Moors. So that means, okay, so Moors didn't have the slave castles. Africans did. Why they keep talking about Moors and slave people when the castles where they took people from were Africans? But they don't want to go there, do they? They don't want to bring that up. They don't want to bring up all these African kings that came out and made apologies to all these Negroes in America for putting them into slavery. It's all the stuff on YouTube. Just research it. It'll come up. But they won't go there. They're going to blame the Moors for doing something. And the Moors are the civilizers of everybody, because we were the custodians of African knowledge. And you talk BS about Moors enslaved somebody. When we taught the world, anybody who was anybody went to the Moors to learn. You name them. Name them. If they didn't go to the Moors to learn, they were the Moor that had the knowledge and people got it from them.
Yeah, I know Dr. John Henry Clark. I'm sorry, Dr. John Henry Clark, he spoke about, great things that the Moors did, as well as going into Spain. And, he talked about how the Europeans was living with their livestock inside the same houses. And, he talked about a lot of the great things. And I think for people who have done the studying, if you've studied, you would know these things about what the Moors actually did when they left up out of, let's just say, when they went into Spain and ruled Spain, and how long they ruled Spain, as well as some of the other things that they taught as far as teaching other civilizations. They actually civilized other groups of people. So I definitely agree with that. Part.
You know what I mean? So if that's something that is recognized by the world, that the Moors did this, why is it so wrong to be Moors? Like, what's the problem? What's the issue? There has to be an issue.
I think what comes into play is that although, just saying it plainly, I think what comes into play is like people are searching for identity, right? And, at the end of the day, a lot of teachers have taught people like, we are the descendants of Africans. And then you have some people who say, well, we are the descendants of Africans, but some of us have some indigenous blood in us as well. And you have different situations like we can talk. Not going into it, but we can talk about situations like the Seminoles down in Florida and certain things that happened there. Some of the black native tribes or whatever. I think what it is just it's an identity crisis at the end of the day. So it's hard for somebody to say, all right, I have accepted that I am a descendant of the Africans that was brought from West Africa to here. And now I have to reaccept that, okay, I'm no longer African. I'm a Moor now. You understand what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, I think it's just an identity crisis. It's a battle of who the hell are we? And people been having these conversations before I was born,
Most definitely.
And I think that's what it is.
But again, when we do the timeline, when we go back again, right? Everybody's going to bring up, quote unquote, Black Wall Street, right? Now, Black Wall Street wasn't black people. Black Wall Street was Aboriginal indigenous people from the Trail of Tears when they were kicking all these so-called Aboriginals out of these southern states, right? The so-called black man who was in slavery, he didn't go back to Africa, or he just joined the Aboriginal people. Why? Because they're the same people. And then they went and they founded Black Wall Street, quote unquote. But then again, if they're playing that they're black, they don't want to be neighbors, they want to wear suit and tie, look like Europeans, then hey, maybe you deserve to get bombed because you're not being yourself, you're fronting. And then they left there, and then they founded another place after Black Wall Street. That people don't even talk about that. Why? Because it's going to lead back to the same story. Oh, these are Aboriginal indigenous people that got kicked out of Black Wall Street because they were Aboriginal and indigenous people, successful, doing their own thing, had their own doctors, their own banks, their own everything in America. Only you have to have the power of an Aboriginal indigenous individual to stand on that claim in America. And again, the issue, this is why when we go again to Dr. York, you can see that he did the same thing that Black Wall Street did. The only difference that with him was that he said that he's a Moor. He said that we're Moors. Milwaukee, a nation of Moors. Forget about all the pedophilia BS. Go to when they first started getting that land. Go to all the corruption that was going on in Putnam County when they were getting so much land. Europeans were coming to them and telling them, well, we want to sell you our land or whatever, but you can give us how much you want for it. This is what was going on there. Now, why would these Europeans be doing this? Giving up their land to some black guys to come build some pyramids and have obelisks and stuff like that. Why are they doing that for? Because these people know who they are, and they're clearly capable of handling their own affairs. So what do we need to be here for? If they can handle their own affairs, build their own pyramids and stuff like that, what? We don't need to help the Negro anymore. The Negro problem is solved. Well, all everybody's got to do is just follow these guys. But then, people get gassed up and stuff gets to their head and they start calling themselves the Mahdi, and they are the one that came from some other planet to save all the nation of whatever. Now you're talking BS. You got all your stuff from Mugujali over there. What are you talking about? They know more. They know Milwaukee Moors in the 1930s, 40s. They know Milwaukee Moors back then. Milwaukee Moors came when Dr. York came. When Dr. York was singing R&B songs and stuff, there was no R&B, there was no Milwaukee Moors.
Yeah.
Right? It's plain and simple. Right? When Elijah Muhammad was Elijah Tool, there was no Nation of Islam.
True.
Right? So what were all these people part of? Either the UNIA or the Moorish Science Temple. One of those two. Or if they were a sellout nigger, they were part of NAACP. And those were the three organizations from the 1900s to the 1920s. And then when you go into obscure, branches of whatever, then you have Ahmadiyya movement and all these other stuff that would deal with the same thing, Aboriginal, Indigenous, Moorish, wearing turbans, wearing jalabiyas and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it was about. Even Move in Philly. What do you think they were repping? You think they're doing some black whatever because they said Africa? Because we said Africa, they were doing Aboriginal and Indigenous. And Aboriginal and Indigenous people supported them. Like, yeah, we get what you guys are trying to do. We get what you're saying with the composting and all that. But what happened? Because they're classifying as something that they're not, it gave the Europeans jurisdiction to destroy their stuff. Because this Europeans not playing with Negro, black, colored people pretending to be stuff that they're not. If you want to pretend that you're stuff or not, then you're collateral damage. It's like people are going to be, Mansa Bay got shot by police. Yeah, that's one more. One more got shot 3 years ago? That's what you're still using to say that you're not Moors? Hell out of here. Y'all's just some cowards, is what it really comes down to. And again, we know that there's a slave mentality why they're a coward. They're not personal cowards, but, they've adopted the crisis of not having an identity. They don't have to, because the history of the Moors is right there, that they can come out of the identity crisis tomorrow. Just say that you're Moors. And again, we put the challenge out to people. Just go to the dollar store, right? Go to the dollar store, get a piece of Bristol board, make yourself a fez, and walk around for a day in it, and just see what happens. Just to see. You don't need no card or nothing like that to do that. Just pretend that you're a Moor for a day and see what happens. Because you've been black, and you didn't even matter. You've been African, you've been Egyptian, you've been Kemetic, you've been Garziite, you've been Nation of Islam, you've been Wapian, you've been Hebrew Israelite, we've been everything else. And our conditions still suck. So how about we try being something else? Just to try. Why not? We got nothing to lose because we're nothing right now. So why don't we just try and see what happens? And you know, if it goes that's not what it's supposed to be, then I guess we're not Moors. We're just some niggers, and then that's what we're supposed to be. But I guarantee you that 50% of the people who do that, their lives are going to change dramatically. Just because of the interaction that they're going to have with people who recognize that they're not black anymore. See, we're coming out the woodworks, telling you all about the history of the Moors, and, hey, oh, you're a Moor? I know you're a Moor. Why don't you tell me that you're a Moor? Bringing you over to the house. Now they got a whole library for you to come sit down and eat. This guy never asked you to come to this house ever. Now that you're a Moor, you can come over, drink tea, and read books. Just because you know that you're a Moor. It's that real. But, you know, people have to get out of their passivity, you know, thinking that know thyself is put on a dashiki. Know thyself is use plantain soap. Know thyself is you have some ankh earrings. That's not know thyself. Know thyself is having the mindset of your ancient foremothers and forefathers and exuding that energy on the world, because the world is waiting for the ancients to return. And we're here, but we don't know who we are. So everybody's just waiting for us. And we don't realize everybody's waiting because we think we got it going on as blacks and Africans when we don't got nothing going on under those labels.
Let me ask you about the Black Identity Extremist document that came out. Have you read that?
Most definite.
Okay. And what I pointed out in one of the streams that I was doing was how I believe that they're covering a lot of different groups within that document. But the thing that stood out to me the most was that they actually mentioned Noble Drew Ali by name, the Moor Science Temple by name, and words like Aboriginal and Indigenous. Build on that for me about what you seen in it, and you know, how does this affect really all of us for real? But you know, how is it affecting the Moor Science Temple as well?
All right. So are we going to look at this, because we have to set the stage for what this document is. So are we looking at this document as in our conversation? Are we looking at this as credible? Like what they're saying in here is really what it is?
Well,
or is this some KKK, you know what I mean, white, you know, trying to make black people look bad type of thing?
I mean, I believe
we have to figure out how we're looking at this.
I believe
before we can discuss it.
Well, I believe it's a racist document, no doubt.
Right.
I believe it's a racist document. It's no different. I believe it's nothing. It's no different than some, like, remember the Stop the Rise of the Black Messiah document, the COINTELPRO document. You know, that was a racist document as well. So yeah,
along those lines.
Right.
All right. Okay. So we'll go with that. You know, if they're saying this, you know, they're not just making assertions. Like, they're actually speaking what might be real. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, we're dealing with the federal right now. There's not municipal. There's not the beat top. Right? These are the suits now that we're dealing with. So, you know, the mindset of the people has to get out of black guy killed by a police officer. These aren't those guys. These are, you know, 2 levels up guys. Right? So on page 6, it stated that BIE violence has been rare over the past 20 years, and there is sparse evidence of any convergence with FCEs who adhere to Moorish beliefs who have historically engaged in nonviolent, fraudulent schemes, including production of fraudulent personal identification documents, such as international motorist certifications, passports, vehicle titles, and registrations and birth certificates, in support of their claims of sovereignty. Right? So, over the past 20 years, there's sparse evidence of any convergence with the people who have Moorish beliefs and the people who have historically engaged in nonviolent, fraudulent, whatever, motorist certification, blah, 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 right? Now, Moors don't have beliefs. This is a culture. So if they're saying Moorish in this, from a cultural perspective, they're talking about Sri Lankan. They're talking about Moros in the Philippines. They're talking about anybody who identifies themselves as quote-unquote Islamic. Because the theme is that, you know, Moors are Islamic. That's where our people go. So this is really bigger than an attack on Moors. Right? This is really an attack on culture. They really want people to abandon the culture. Forget about saying they're Moors. Because remember, once they say that they're not Moors, they're giving up the culture. And then if you give it up, then you can't say later that the European made you. Right? So they're making a distinction that there's Moorish groups who have historically engaged in non-violent, fraudulent schemes, including the production of fraudulent personal identification documents. So if there's fraudulent personal identification documents, then there's legitimate production of personal identification documents by Moors. Because they're speaking of two different parties. They're speaking about the people who are a fraud, which is all these modern people who are making up IDs and stuff like that, claiming that, you know, they're or whatever. And then there's the actual people who are with the original teachings of this, which is that we're not Negro, black, colored, we're Moors, right? Status correction. It's not about papers and all that stuff, but we have those things available because you have to present something on the public record if you're making that big of a statement. Right? If you're saying you're Kemetic and you're Hebrew and whatever, you don't need nothing to do that. You can just do that. That's just switching from, you know, from nigger ER to nigger A. And then from nigger to niggas. Because niggas is really what that's not the reality. That's a fiction. When Moors say that we're Moors, we're actually going through a process of letting the so-called federal government know that we made this proclamation by putting them on notice of where we stand now as Moors. We have a right to do that, right? So don't look at them saying Moors in this document and then saying all these things, you know what I mean, fraudulent this and that, and encounters with law enforcement in the past that are lethally violent and all that stuff. Don't look at that as across the board. That's how it is with all Moors. They're talking about specific Moors. And Moors who are true to the teachings of Noble Drew Ali and true to what the Moors have done from a historical and a spiritual perspective to the world, condemn the actions of those people who play this game with Moorish birthright like it's for sale. Right? We're not some things that Moors do, because we know what the real is. And we know that certain things that people do is causing confusion. So when they show, for example, Javen Bullis is going to show all these videos of Moors, right, getting stopped by a highwayman and getting arrested, or starting to pray, or, you know what I mean, making a mockery of Moors who give a nationality card. The same way that there's Moors with that, there's Moors who aren't recorded, who don't record, because ain't nothing to record. And they get through smooth sailing, it's not no issue. Right? And why don't they record? Because this is their birthright. Right? This is theirs. They can choose to tell it to the public if they want. But trust that because they're in a body of other Moors who have the same identification that they have, they will build with the family about what's what. And again, you know, you're going through this document and they say something like page 5, October 4th and 13th, 2016, an individual allegedly shot at 2 different police stations in Indianapolis, Indiana. The subject left a handwritten note at the scene of one of the shootings in which he identified himself as a Moor.
Right,
now, wouldn't that mean that they accepted that he's a Moor?
If he's claiming to be,
well, he put a paper down, and the paper said that he's a Moor. So we're letting you know in this assessment that this Moor shot at 2 police. That means they recognize that he's a Moor, right?
Yeah, in the sense of him identifying himself as being a Moor, like
himself.
Right.
So
If
they
I
recognize that
like,
he can identify. Because remember, this is the FBI.
Right, but I can say the same thing. Like if I wrote down and said that I'm a Pyru and
That's why I said, are we dealing with this document as what it is? Because if we are, let's stick to this. We don't have to assume anything. They said that he's a Moor because he wrote it on a piece of paper.
Okay,
he didn't have nationality papers. He didn't have a card. He didn't have whatever. He just wrote the shit on a piece of paper.
Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna go with.
And they went with it.
I'm gonna go with you and say that in the document they identify him identifying himself as a Moor.
All right. So doesn't that mean that they recognize you having power to identify yourself as a Moor? Forget what he did. Remember, this is the FBI talking. So since people won't answer, we'll answer for them. Yes. That means that the FBI knows.
You was asking me. No, I can answer the question. I didn't know you was. I was letting you go ahead and talk.
Yeah, that's what
okay, so my fault. So no, in the document, yeah, they're identifying him as a Moor. But see, I'm even saying that they identify Moors by name. So I'm not saying that the United States isn't recognizing who individuals are stating that they're Moors. That's not my argument at all. It's not even my argument to say that the United States doesn't has never identified people as being Moors, because like most of the studying that I do is based off of our history since people have been here in the Americas, or as far as back as we can go, is seeing people in America, right? And it deals with between like the 1700s and the early 1920s or whatever. So there are documents that I've read that identify people as being several things: Moors, mulatto, Negro, as well as Native or Indian or whatever. So I've seen where they've identified people as being Moor before. So that's not really. I wouldn't argue that point right there. Yeah, I wouldn't argue that point right there. So now, yeah. So in the context of the paperwork, they are identifying the individual who they claim did this as a Moor.
All right. Now, the next one, on the 17th of July, 2016, Long had also declared himself to be a Moor, had changed his slave name to the Moorish name Cosmo Asar Setepenra. Is that a Moorish name?
No, that's one of those Kemetic names.
Okay, but he identified himself as a Moor, though.
Right.
And the FBI recognized that he has a Kemetic name. Remember, he did a status correction from Gavin Long to Cosmo Asarsa Pepinra. And they recognized the name correction because they call him by the name, the quote-unquote Moorish name. But if it's a Moorish name, why is it Kemetic? What are they telling people? What's the message that they're telling people about the Kemetics and the Moors?
Well, for me, what the document is doing is basically going to put everybody under that same, just putting everybody in the same collective, and this whatever they're trying to do with this document.
What's the collective?
Of being black identity extremists, based upon the examples that are given are Moorish.
So it's really Moors because the black is not an identity. So they're not putting people under black identity extremist label. They're putting people under the Moorish label, which is where they're supposed to be at because they're Moors.
But what does BIE stand for? The BIE stands for Black Identity Extremists. So
black is not an identity.
But this is
black is an adjective, and it describes. It does not identify.
But brother, remember, we are dealing with what the because we said that we was gonna do this. We are dealing with what the document says. Now, me and you may see it differently.
What the document says. The document says black identity extremists likely motivated to target law enforcement officers.
Right.
When we look at this document, right, and it says black identity, right? Black is not an identity. It describes. So for them to say black identity is a fiction, that's colorable. They're speaking colorable. They're speaking fraudulently. So if they're speaking fraudulently on the first page of this document, then we're either going with the fraud or we're going to cast it away and seek the truth out. If we go with the fraud, then we're going to go with the fact that these FBI people who are identifying these quote-unquote black identity extremists know that they're Moors. 1. 2, they know that Kemetic people are also Moors. Right? 2. Right? 3, they know, where's the page at? They know, in addition, this is page 6, they know, in addition, not all self-identified Moors are sovereign citizens. Not all self-identified Moors are sovereign citizens. Tell Javen Bullets that, so he can stop classifying all Moors as sovereign citizens because we have ID that we made up ourselves. Because the FBI knows, they put it in the document, that in addition, not all self-identifying Moors are sovereign citizens. And not only that, but not all sovereign citizen Moors engage in violence.
You know what though? This is how I feel though on this document, right? Okay, because like we saying we don't. I think there is no disagreement in what you are saying, but if we're gonna read it for what it is, we have to read it. So if you even read it on the first page, it says the FBI assesses it is very likely a black identity extremist, and it puts BIE perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated retaliatory lethal violence against law enforcement. So I get, like, if we're gonna put it in a real context, we can't dissect it the way that you're saying it. But if we just gonna read it for what it is, but if we're gonna read it for what it is, that's why I said they are bottling the entire community. If you're Moorish or like how you pointing out, Kemetic, RBG, all of these different things, they even named the Black Liberation Army as well. If we're gonna read it, what we're saying is, all right, they're putting everybody inside it, but since the Moors, our Moorish brothers, are challenging them on a legal field or a legal front, that at the end of the day, and people may disagree with me, but I believe that's even more dangerous to them than it is some of us just saying like, I'm RBG or I'm, Kemetic or I'm this or I'm that. Because now what you are doing you're using the laws against them to break the chains of oppression, and such things. So I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, they are pointing. I just believe that they're bottling everybody up in the same thing, and not
no doubt. No, I'm not in denial of them using this as a propaganda campaign against all of our people who are conscious or who are woke or whatever know themselves.
Right.
Guaranteed. Right? Anybody who claims that they're woke, you're under this. But recognize that in order for you to be under this, you have to be under the black label. If you're not under the black label, like they said, not all Moors that have self-identification documents are part of the sovereign citizen stuff. So that excludes certain people. That's an exclusion. Not everybody that says they're Moors and that they stand up for their rights is part of this. Only the ones that engage in extreme violence, only the ones that they have already, remember, they've been surveillance in Moor Science Temple of America since the 1900s. They didn't just find out about Moors right now.
That's true, but
they've been known.
But in the context as well, it says some, and this is on, I think it's page 2. It says it is likely some. So basically, by them saying some, for me, it's saying like, all right, not all of them. Okay, so it says some BIEs or Black Identity Extremists are influenced by a mix of anti-authoritarian, more sovereign citizen ideology and BIE ideology. So I get what you're saying, right? But it says some, like some of us, like basically saying, all right, some of these people may be influenced by this, and the other ones aren't. But that still doesn't exclude them from this document.
No, but it does exclude them. If they're saying some, then they're not talking about the ones who aren't part of it. Why would they include them? They would say all of them.
No. When they say some,
why would they say some if they don't mean some?
Because they're saying some. Okay, so they're saying some of us are influenced by the police brutality against African Americans, and then some are motivated. Because I will have to read it all. So basically, it says in the ideologically motivated violent criminal activity within the BIE movement, the FBI assesses that it is very likely some of the BIEs are influenced by a mixture of what I said, the more sovereign citizen. So and we can disagree on that, but what I see is it says that some of them are influenced by the more sovereignty and some of them are influenced by other things.
Yeah, but see now again, like I'm not speaking as an outsider to what they're talking about. We know Moors who the FBI checked personally, knocked their door, and everything was cool. They didn't classify them as anything.
Mm-hmm.
So for people to say that, well, they're not going to do that or whatever, that's assumption. You know what I mean? Like, there's Moors we know, FBI, they sent in some paperwork with regard to taxes.
Uh-huh.
Right? That's federal. If you're evading taxes, FBI is going to come check you. Moors got checked at his job. Right? Got checked at his job by the FBI. And it was no issue. Matter of fact, FBI wanted to take him out to go eat after, so he could explain to him more about this stuff because, you know, he wanted to know some stuff. This is FBI. People could say whatever, you know what I mean, because they weren't there, so they could say that it didn't happen or whatever. That's up to them. You know what I mean? Like, we're not here bullshitting about, you know, should you have a license or not, or a passport or whatever like that. That's not what this is about. This is about Negro black colored people coming into their right mind and stop these zombies out here. This is about Negro black colored people recognizing that the Negro should be improved by now. The Negro should be somewhere other than being Negro.
I mean, that's...
How is it that we're...
Yeah,
how is it? No, because again, we're going to use the document, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna say certain things, but we're not. It's so colorable. Like they're talking about stuff happening against African Americans. There's nobody called that. That's a fiction. Jesse Jackson made that up.
But
How are they saying that there's a people? How are they saying that there's some people getting killed called African Americans? Those aren't people.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's people, not me. I damn sure don't. But it is people from the community who consider themselves African American. So that's who they're talking to. You see what I'm saying?
But again,
like me and you understand this.
The maximum of law, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
No. But me and you may understand that there's no such thing as an African American, right? But you have people who look like us that are walking around talking about, the African American community. So just like you said, the brother wrote down that I'm a Moor. It doesn't have any. That's why I said they said some. So what I'm saying is they wrote something in there speaking directly towards Moors, but they also are speaking to those who are out here, like in Ferguson and other places, doing things, rioting or whatever they feel like is disrupting whatever their process and whatever they got going on, who identify themselves as African American. We can't say that those people don't exist, even if African American, the term, isn't real, and even if Jesse Jackson created some bullshit, it's still individuals out here who believe that they are African American.
Right, but this is what we're saying, that if the document is addressing the quote-unquote black identity, right, then only black identities should be listed in it. Moor is not a black identity. Sri Lankans are Moors. They don't call themselves black. Does that mean Sri Lankans are part of the BIE?
But brother, we didn't write this. They wrote it. You see what I'm saying? Like,
but this was the whole point in the beginning. Why I said, are we looking at this as something credible, or are we looking at this as some white racist whatever? If we're looking at it as some white racist whatever, then it can't be taken serious. You have to eliminate. All the little terms and all the little phrases and all the little BS that they try to say to make us look like we're some type of threat, when the people who are killing the people are the real black identity extremists.
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
Because again, remember, black means pale.
So let me ask you this.
We're talking about black identity extremists. We're really talking about KKK. We're really talking about highwaymen that are murdering innocent Aboriginal indigenous people.
I'm gonna rock with you on that. Okay, I'm gonna rock with you on that. What I'm gonna ask you is this though. Okay, so we saying that we're reading this particular document as a racist document that's basically that was put out by people who are racist individuals. Okay, right. So with that being said, was the Stop the Rise of the Black Messiah a racist document?
Hell yeah, because
how many? Okay, all right, hold on.
Black Messiah.
Okay, so all right, so it was a racist document, but that actual document, that was put out, and therefore after we began to see them shoot up the Black Panthers headquarters, they began to assassinate Black Panthers members. They began to lock people up. We still have people who are in exile and everything.
And again, it goes back to that same thing. That if you are claiming certain things, you better be secure on what you claim.
Right.
You can't tell me that you're black, but then you're telling me you have a constitutional right to bear arms. Because black people are citizens.
I'm rocking. Hold on, I'm rocking.
Dred Scott case tells you that African slaves cannot be citizens. If you're not a citizen, then the Constitution doesn't apply to you.
Okay.
So how are you going to say that you have a constitutional right to walk around with these arms when the same people who you're walking arms with, who also have arms, know that you're in violation because you're not even a citizen?
But what I'm saying, that my point in bringing that up is this: I believe that they will use this document to do similar things to people who they are classifying as being certain things in this document. So that's why I brought up the fact that they said some. That's why I brought up the fact that they said African American. So you being Moorish, right? And you brought up the ignorance of the law. You being Moorish, I'm gonna go with you and say you may be able to fight this on a legal ground, right? But what about the individual who's claiming that he's an African American? See, this document
that he's more.
This document puts him in danger,
and he better get himself out of that jurisdiction, so that stuff doesn't apply to him.
But if if he doesn't, though,
look at it like this, right?
Okay.
Look at it like this, right?
Right.
With it's no different than Django, right?
Mm-hmm. The movie.
After he came out of slavery, what did he do? Yeah, they say it's a movie, but it's based on real events.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is how the slaves got out of slavery. Stop dressing like a slave. Real simple. Harriet Tubman did it. Go research how they escaped through the Underground Railroad. What were they doing? Switching clothes and stuff like that on the trip so they don't look like an escaped runaway. It's the exact same thing.
Right. But what I'm saying is this:
if you're gonna go with it, if you're gonna go with I'm a slave from Africa, right? Then don't tell me about you have constitutional rights to bear arms. Don't tell me about you're a citizen. Don't tell me about Black Lives Matter, because they don't. Don't tell me about anything relative to law. Because if you classify yourself as black, Negro, African, American, whatever like that, you fall under the slave codes. Period. And that's the rules that the European is going to use to govern you, because you're a slave. Period. It's not up to assumption or whatever. That's what is happening right. But to keep
it a buck,
people are under slave codes.
But to keep it a buck and keep it real, bruh, it's more of them than it is people of like minds like me and you, where we can see certain things in this document. Like, it's more people. The majority of the people aren't conscious. The majority of the people aren't aware of the things that you are talking about as far as Moorish, being Moorish, and identifying yourself as a Moorish nationality. The majority of people who look like us in America are walking around calling themselves African American. So this particular document is a direct threat to them.
Yes, and it's supposed to be. It's like what they say. Pain is a great teacher. You could keep getting pain all you want, but you don't want to learn. Pain will lead to death. So it's up to the people. It's like we say, you could lead a horse to water. You don't make no horse drink anything. What do we do with your platform? Leading them to water, breaking down this stuff, trying to show people a perspective so they can get off of this thing and go do some studying and check some stuff out. Don't just hear what this is say. Oh yeah, well we're just gonna wait because Javen Bulletin is gonna come up in an hour, and then we're gonna see what he says, and then another one is gonna come up an hour after that against Javen. That's not what this is about. Either you want to get information so you can free yourself and your family, or you want to be these people's nigger. That's all that's going on. Black identity extremists, either you're part of the extreme BS, going out there, marching, picketing, you know what I mean? You're out there on some peaceful stuff, but then in the same crowd, there's people throwing bottles and lighting stuff on fire or whatever like that. Why wouldn't you get caught up in it? But hey, if you're home studying, guaranteed you wouldn't be caught up in none of that. You have no time to be marching up and down the place for no goddamn reason. Because you already know that these people are dealing with slave codes. So when they say, we're sending out the riot team because of, black protesters protesting whatever. You know what they call that? Corralling. This is in the riot handbook, whatever. They're going to go corral the protesters. Only animals get corralled. They don't corral human beings. So in their book that gives them the maneuvers and the whatever it is that they're going to do to control a scene with protesters in case it gets violent, is called corralling. You want to know why people get pepper sprayed in their face? Why people get slapped with billy clubs and stuff like that? Why people get sick dogs on them? Because they're animals. That's how they're looking at these people. Just for the simple fact that they're there. Guilty by association. You said, you know what? I'm just gonna go get a tea. I have nothing to do with the protest, you know what I mean? But I gotta walk through the protesters to get to my tea spot. And you decide that's the day you're gonna choose to go tea, and they start corralling. Your tea doesn't matter. You're part of the stuff. It's the same thing with this document. If you believe that, you know, these people are racist, your actions are going to be extreme against them. So they'll put you under the thing. That's why Moors tell Moors, hey, intelligent tone, nothing to be mad about. Because we're not in the status of these people. Oh, you thought that I was Negro? Sorry, I'm not Negro, black, colored, I'm Moor. Right? And based on that, they'll deal with you accordingly. And again, going back to people who like to record those things or whatever, right? There are Moors who record that have stuff going smooth. No issues. Sir, have a nice day. Mr. Bay, sorry for stopping you and all that stuff. Please carry on. There's those examples, but they're never going to talk about those. Because if we talk about those, it's still not gonna make our people wake up. We can come out tomorrow with a letter. As a matter of fact, we got the letters. Go to Google Moorish American Proclamations, right? Moorish American Proclamations, and then you find all these states that recognize who the Moors are. They put it all in there, that we're the Aboriginal and Indigenous people, that this is the Moroccan Empire, that we have the names El and Bay, we could use these names because our ancestors had these names and all that. This is the federal government. This is the municipal government. This is the whoever that people say are the government. This is them acknowledging that we're Moors.
What's the name?
And we have a right to be Moors.
What's the name of the website?
Our people are going to get down with it. Why not? Federal government. I mean, you're going to get down with the federal government BIEPS, but when the federal government recognizes Moors, they're not going to recognize that. You're going to say, "Oh, that's the white man stuff. We can't listen to that."
What'd you say the name of the website is?
Just Google Moorish American Proclamations.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. All right, because I write stuff down while I'm doing interviews, so
yeah, no worries. Right, Moorish American Proclamation. Actually, Brother Yusuf, you got the one there?
Brother Rami,
yeah. Let's put that out. Let's put that out there, just so people know, just so people can hear what the quote unquote, what they would say, government knows about the Moors, and they proclaim this themselves. This is not Moors doing something. This is them, because of the activity of Moors in Chicago, them coming out and saying this about the Moors.
All right, this is dated December 22nd, 2011, from the mayor of Chicago. Office of the Mayor, City of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, Mayor, proclamation. Quote, whereas the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, Hamathites, and Canaanites, who were permitted by the old pharaohs of Kemet to traverse from East Africa, later formed themselves kingdoms extending from northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa, the Atlantic islands, unto the present-day continental America. And whereas the indigenous Moorish Americans of the Americas are now united in order to again link themselves with the family of nations. And whereas the Moorish Americans, being aboriginal to the territories of North, Central, and South Americas, have formed sovereign theocratic governments guided by command principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, through virtue of the universal right to self-determination, as well as with the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples guaranteed in the Charter. And whereas on January 8th, 1886, Noble Drew Ali was born in the state of North Carolina, destined to become the first patriot of its mentally enslaved Moorish American people. In 1912, he was later inducted as El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali by the heads of Egypt and holy city of Mecca to return to the United States as the last prophet and founding father of the newly risen nation of Moorish Americans. As a result of the 13th Amendment, Moorish people were emancipated from slavery in 1865. Now, therefore, I, Rami Manuel, Mayor of the City of Chicago, do hereby proclaim January 8th through 15th, 2012, to be Moorish American Week in the city in Chicago, and urge all residents to recognize the events planned for this time. Rami Manuel, Mayor.
Yeah, and that was 2011?
2011. It was in December.
Right? 2011, he put that on the record, telling all these Negro black colored people that you have a prophet, you have a nationality, you have an estate, you're the Aboriginal indigenous people, you have a right to do whatever it is that you're, but then your friend's going to come and tell more that they can't do this, and federal government said that we can't do whatever. That doesn't, I mean, he's working with the colonizer. How is he saying that we can't do what the colonizer doesn't want us to do? We have to do what the colonizer said. No, we don't. We have a right to do what Aboriginal and Indigenous people do, which is govern themselves. And again, keep in mind, in that document, they never mentioned anything about sovereign citizens. How come? If more than the sovereign citizens, I'm sure the mayor of Chicago would have known that and addressed it in the proclamation about these sovereign citizen Moors. So obviously Moors aren't sovereign citizens. If you, through that whole thing, and never once connected Moors to sovereign citizens. But then when we say it, people are going to attack us. How come we don't go at Rami Manuel for not calling Moors sovereign citizens? Because he didn't call us sovereign citizens. But why is it that conscious Negro black colored people have the audacity to disrespect the Moorish birthright and tie it to some terrorist European concept and do the same thing that the BIE is doing? How are they trying to tie Moors to the sovereign citizen movement, which is some European terrorist or whatever, and the BIE is trying to do the same thing? People not looking at these people as agents when they start talking against Moors, who are active and living according to the principles laid down by Noble Drew Ali.
I think it may be this, because I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring up that it's people who are claiming sovereignty who aren't Moors. I think what it is that one, people are getting confused because some of the same wording is being used when they do encounter these individuals, as well as when they see what's being shown online, like as far as the videos, as well as it comes to a point where, like, we got to admit that a lot of people don't know what the Moorish brothers are actually putting out there as far as their nationality versus the difference between someone saying that I am sovereign. So I think there's a confusion in that, just like there's a confusion between.
Let's use this as an example.
Go ahead.
You ever heard of federal government?
Yes.
You ever heard of Federal Express?
Yes.
Is Federal Express government?
I mean, no. I mean, we know that, but
do you assume it is?
Never. But at the same time, Federal Express, that's not that kind of ain't a good example, because what I'm saying, okay,
it's a great example.
I'm gonna tell you what, I can give you a better example. I can give you a better example.
Using the same name. So there's these people who practice sovereign stuff and say that they're Moors. Then there's these people who say that they're Moors but don't practice sovereign stuff, right? And then people are looking at the Moors who practice sovereign stuff as Moors, just like they're not looking at Federal Express as government. But
the federal government and Federal Express, they aren't using some of the similar talking points when they encounter.
Federal means one thing. Federal means one thing.
Yeah, but if I call Federal Express,
government is one thing.
Okay, but if I call Federal Express, I'm not talking about government. with the Moors and sovereign people, they're both talking about laws. So I mean, we can't be blind. We can't be blind and say
there's no such thing as sovereign citizen. Like that's not even a concept. That's a reality.
But again, brother,
that's something that's made up, just like African American. That's not real.
But there are still people. But there are still people in America who believe that they are sovereign citizens. There are still people who are using the same.
They could believe. They can believe whatever they want.
Yeah, brother, but that doesn't mean that the people aren't going to be confused when they hear you talk about certain things, and you use in the sovereign citizens, people who claim they're sovereign citizens are using the same terminologies that you're using. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to be confused.
And that's why I brought up that ignorance of the law. Because if we're saying sovereign citizen or whatever, we're talking about law according to you. All right, well then that's why we say again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Which means don't talk about BS that you don't know anything about. Don't talk about government when you haven't read the Constitution. Don't talk about Constitution if you don't have a nationality. Don't talk about nationality if you don't even have a flag and you have a banner and you're talking about that's a flag when it's a banner. And no nation in the world recognizes it as a flag. It's a banner. To everybody in the world, you're just playing games. We have to stop playing games. It's really just that simple. Either we're going to get serious with what we want to do as a nation of people, or we continue with the BS that we see our people dealing with. And again, when you look at Moors, you know what I mean? Like, you might hear us talking now on something, but after we get off this, like, we're not Moors to talk to you, and then after this, we're not Moors. Right? This is not a turn on, turn off perspective. This is not a school of thought. This is culture. Moorish is culture. Moorish is not a group that you join, or a tribe, or an organization, or association. It's a culture. The sooner our people recognize that it's their culture, they would say, oh, well, I'm a Moor, but I'm Rastafarian. Oh, I'm a Moor, but I'm Kemetic. Oh, I'm a Moor, but I'm Hebrew Israelite. Oh, I'm a Moor, but I'm Christian. Oh, I'm a Moor, but I'm Buddhist. I'm a Moor, but I'm whatever. And then we could do something. Ain't nobody telling anybody give up anything if they say that they're Moors or whatever. We say tie yourself back to your bloodline, and then let's start talking about let's do some stuff. You put the cart before the horse, you don't move. Okay, we're doing that for generations. How about this one time, we just take the cart, put it behind the horse, and then see what happens.
You know what I think is happening, brother? Like what I see, and if you want people, if Moors are Moorish brothers, and I consider y'all my brothers. I there's no like, oh, you know, F the Moors or this. I don't get down like just because we may not agree or see eye to eye doesn't mean I don't consider you to be a part of my extended family. All right. What I see is I see this. I see a lot of people who are Moors kind of get offended when people get to asking questions, or because I don't know if they feel like they're being questioned about it or not. But I think what should happen is there should be more dialogue between the community so people can understand what's going on. Because even like this sovereignty, this whole sovereignty thing, the sovereignty thing is something that's been sold to people in the black community,
yes.
Right? So if the Moorish brothers are saying that, hey, sovereignty isn't real, we would need to hear that. We should hear that from the Moorish brothers to educate the people. Like, listen, don't fall into the trap of this sovereignty.
Yeah, we do. The problem is that our people want what they want. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they want their addiction. You know, they want the transatlantic slave trade and the passivity and, you know, say for all these years kill cracker, never even pushed a cracker. Never even looked a cracker in the eyes. Find me some black guy who started selling all that kill cracker stuff that when he got pulled over didn't cower to the highwayman and give up the license. Son Leonard's one. He put his stuff on YouTube so you could see him be a good nigger. Right? But then one standing up for their rights get kidnapped. Oh, see, they got kidnapped or whatever. At least they stood up, even with getting kidnapped. At least they stood up to these highwaymen. At least they stood up to these slave masters and didn't take this passive, cowering position like all the Negro black color people take, that they're going to have guns and they're going to shoot Bibles and shoot trees. And as soon as somebody steps up and does something, they're going to tag them with Moors and try to get people to think that, they shouldn't do that and Biden do that and all that. Like, if people can't see that they're being played, you know what I mean? If their eyes aren't open to see that they're being played, then they deserve to be cannon fodder. Like, it's nothing personal. You deserve to be embers if you want to be firewood. You don't have to be firewood. You know what I mean? You don't have to be crab in the bucket. But hey, if you want to be crab in the bucket, then keep getting pulled on.
All right, so let's talk about this, because you brought up about, you know, getting pulled over and stuff like that. I did see a video, and then Javen talked about it yesterday, and where you were saying that 99% of Canaanland Moors have, I think you said, and you can correct me if I misquote you, but 99% have license plates, and 99%, I want to say you said, have either IDs or driver's license.
Right.
Okay, but you said 100% of them reserve their rights on those contracts. So, do you think that individuals should basically do as you're saying? You know, have the license plates, get the driver's license or IDs or whatever, but reserve your rights on the contracts instead of riding around with no license plate?
I mean, to a degree, because even with somebody who's, okay, first of all, the contracts that we're dealing with are, as we know, from the slave master, right? We know that if anybody that is a slave master is giving you a contract, more than likely there's stuff in there that he's trying to hold you to, so you need to be, you know, very detailed, because the devil is in the details. So because the devil is in the details, because the devil wrote this contract, it would probably be in your best interest to protect yourself when engaging in any contract with this devil, so that you're not held completely liable when they call in whatever it is for the contract. So, for example, with driving, right? Moors know that if I'm going to exercise this thing called right to travel, first thing is I'm buying whatever I'm driving, I'm buying that cash. Okay, nobody's not going to loan over me. It's going to be my personal property. Second thing is that when I buy that, I'm getting the original manufacturer's certificate for that thing that I bought, because I'm not going to be registering it with the state. Because once I register it with the state, that means it now belongs to the state. It does not belong to me anymore. This is what it means when you register. It's not an assumption. This is what it is. This is why when they pull you over and it's some measly whatever, they can tell you hell no and take your car, boot your car, do whatever it is, so you don't have access to your own stuff. That's your stuff. When you don't have access to it, it's because you registered it with them. So once you buy it and you have that quote unquote manufacturer certificate, now that's your property. The next thing is getting it on the road. And to get it on the road, you put the key in, you turn the thing, and then they let you drive off the lot without a plate. Why? Because Moors would be there with their papers, letting the individual who's selling the car know, you know, this is what I do. This is not, you know what I mean? Like, if I get pulled over when I leave here, I'm not showing a license. These are for the people who are outside of the jurisdiction of licenses. This is how they would do it. Right? And keep in mind that they're not doing that as Negro, black, colored, African conscious people. They're doing that as Moors. They're exercising the right. They go to whoever makes plates, get their plate, put it on, and they travel. And they get stopped. They give their cards. They might get some ham-ups. It might not be anything crazy like how you might see in videos. But trust me, they would, be able to leave. Now, people who have these instruments, right? The Moors who are exercising the right to travel and they've done it the correct way, they're not in the 100%. They're in their own separate thing. The 100% are the people who have the licenses. So the 99% that have the licenses, the insurance or whatever like that, and reserve their rights. And the 1% who have the instruments and all that stuff, but they don't even care about that. They're standing on their birthrights regardless of what these people do. Whether they get a ticket, whether they get window busted open, whether they get dragged out, whether whatever, they're not giving no license. They're giving nationality cards. These people can kidnap them, put them in jail, whatever. After they get out, they're still going to be Moors after. They're still going to go get some finance, get a new car, and they're going to do it all over again just because that's where they're at, right? That's where they're at. The other people who are getting themselves out of this, and you come into this aspect or this mindset that you're not Negro, black, colored, you're not a slave anymore, you have a status, and that status is more, it's in your best interest to make sure that you reserve your rights on these contracts that you do with these devils, since the devil is in the details, which is going to be in the contract, which is what they're going to hold you to. So once you understand how to live within contracts, you'll recognize that there's no contract in the Americas that a European is making with somebody who looks like us that isn't being monetized outside of the United States. Every contract that they make, they monetize it and sell it outside of the United States. That's how they exist. Because they're a corporation. They're not really a government.
So let's say, for instance, there's a traffic stop that you either one of you brothers are involved in. So you're going to show your driver's license that was provided by them, as well as your Moorish identification as well.
If it calls for that,
okay,
yeah, because that way you fall back on why you reserved. You fall back on the right that you reserved.
Okay,
that's the whole point of reserving the right. So these people say license, right? Is needed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
When you look up driving, it'll tell you that driving has to do with commerce. Commerce has to do with trade, you know what I mean? Goods and services or whatever. If I'm just going to the store to buy something, if I'm just going from A to B, and I'm not making any profits while I'm traveling from A to B, I don't need a license. So if I get stopped, you know what I mean, for some minor infraction, you know, to save yourself the hassle of whatever it's going to be, you give the license, you get the ticket, and when you go to court, you fight as a Moor. Because they're going to dismiss it anyways, because when you put your status on the record, it shows that they don't have jurisdiction. But only Moors know that. People who are black that aren't Moors, they think that it stops at he got pulled out the car or they busted his window. It doesn't stop there. It's going to go to court. And again, like we're saying, there is a Moor who, one of the videos that Javen Bullets put up, right? That Moor went to court after and they dismissed everything. They dismissed all the tickets. But he's not going to put that part up. You know what I mean? Because, you know, these people are looking for ways to get people to stay away from their birthrights. Right? Opposed to looking at it like, hey, even though these individuals got railroaded or whatever, that's pretty serious. They're standing up for their nationality or whatever. I don't see that happen to black guys. Black guy would have been shot already. You know?
Yeah.
How come none of those Moors got shot? Like how they do black guys at the traffic stop. Same stuff. Guy reaching for his wallet, got shot. Well, you know, they got more going in the glove, going under the seat, pulling stuff out, and they don't feel threatened. I thought there's black identity extremists, they're supposed to be threatened by that. How do you have a 15-minute video of a dude, you know, going back and forth with a highwayman or whatever, they didn't just shoot this dude? How come? I mean, that's what they do with black guys. Oh, but these people aren't black. They're more. They got a status. So they're going to deal with them different than they deal with other people, especially if they're on camera. Because remember that when they put it on camera, now it's public record. If somebody's recording, trust me, the police know that it's getting uploaded somewhere. Or that this individual has evidence on them. So when you see that they go hard at Moors, and then a Moor uploads that, you think that Moor is embarrassed or something because he got pulled over and they did something? No. Why? Because it's just proving the corruption. Look at what these people are going to do just because I don't have a license. Is how Moors are looking at it. Listen, we're going to show you. We're going to be an example. We're going to get our ass kicked and all that stuff so that we can show people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's get it, like, let's get to the like conclusion. I gotta ask some questions about the Javen Bullets conversation. Like you said, Javen had been over here a few times. Now, you know, I've had you over here. I've watched like 3 or 4 of your videos. At this point, is it off the table? And it can happen anywhere. Javen said it as well, and you know, it doesn't have to be here. It could be wherever you brothers decide. But are you willing to have dialogue? I'm not even gonna say a debate, but dialogue about this conversation.
I mean, it has to do with, you know, it's like John Henry Clark said, you know, you debate your equals, right? Like what we're talking about isn't up for debate. It's not up for discussion if the individual is not versed in that school of thought or that frame of mind. That is no different than, you know, the footballer and the basketball player is going to debate which sport's the best. Like what's to talk about? Obviously, the football guy is going to pick football.
Well, the reason why I'm saying, because you both addressed each other through video. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I'm not necessarily saying a debate, but dialogue. You know, maybe some type of
but again, what is the conclusion at the end of the dialogue is he's still Negro and I'm still more than, it doesn't even, what's the sense to talk about? Because the whole point of Moors presenting what they're presenting is to get our people to get themselves out of that dead status. So to be at the end of it and him still have a dead status is useless for me as a Moor. Because the point of us talking, the point of coming on this platform is to get our people to consider that, you know what, maybe I need to go do some studying and consider this thing about correcting status. He was right about Muhammad Ali. Because Muhammad Ali did it, and that's a Moorish name. You know, most Def did. You know? People are coming out and speaking different than they used to talk. Maybe there's some merit to this, just to check it out, you know. But to do the whole, you know, like that thing that he wants to do, he can do that with Lord Abba or Taharka Bay or one of them ones. Those ones who like to, you know what I mean, do those stuff. Right? This is not up for debate with us.
Now, is there
after this, we're still Moors. You know what I mean? The discussion has to be something productive. The discussion can't be prove something to somebody who, after you prove it, they're still not going to be down with what we've just proved. You know what I mean? Like we said, we just showed that the mayor of Chicago recognizes the Moors as who we are and that we are who we say we are. That alone should get people to say, especially Javen Bullets, to say, hey, the mayor of Chicago knows that. Yeah, maybe there's more to this. Maybe I haven't looking at this thing more deep enough. Maybe I'm looking at this too shallow. And then he would humble himself, go study, and then come back with something, with some documented stuff. Not some video, somebody put up a video to try to, and then, you know, these people in the video, they don't got no fez, they don't got no turban or nothing like that, talking about their Mars. What do you mean? You know what I mean?
Okay.
As far as Mars are concerned, like, we're not looking at that as credible. We know Mars. We've been at their own place 10, 15 years. What do you mean? Right to travel doesn't exist. They don't get tickets or nothing like that. You know Mars that who never paid IRS a dime in 10, 15 years. Zero. They work and all that. You know what I mean? So like we're saying, you know, like, yeah, we can have a discussion. It ain't no big deal. We can have a discussion. But if it's going to get into, you know, like, we have to try to prove something to our people so that they can, you know, they say nothing to prove. You go study, you find out the same stuff that we know. You don't got some secret vault of information that only Mars has access to. You know, anybody can know everything that we talked about today. It's not secluded to Mars. There's some things that are, you know, quote unquote, Mars Science Temple, Mars Divine National Movement that you might not really have access to like that. But the baseline info, that you're not Negro black color, that we're Mars, that our history goes back to the ancient Canaanites, Moabites, Hittites, and all that, that's common knowledge that everybody knows and everybody's waiting for us to adopt. So, I mean, we're open for it. I mean, I'm not shooting it down or nothing like that, but know that, you know, if he's coming with, he better not be coming with some video clips and stuff like that. He better have some books and some pages to prove all this stuff that he's claiming with regard to Mars. And he better not be quoting from some European.
All right.
You know, because, you know, that's the devil. That's the white man. So why are you using his stuff? Bring me some Asiatic stuff to prove your claim.
Well, he's in the chat room, so he heard your response to that.
Then we got the muftis in the chat. It ain't no big deal if he's in the chat. He's like, you know, deal with the muftis in the chat.
No. What I'm saying is,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, he's gonna talk from the chat and then, you know, try to get something on here. No, like, deal with the chat. If that's where you're at, deal with the people in the chat. There's more in the chat who are making responses right now that he's not even dealing with.
Well, what I'm saying is he heard your answer to my question. Is the reason why I said he's in the chat room. You know what I mean? So, you know, I know he was saying he was down to have the conversation. I asked him a question, and I'm gonna ask you: is there a difference between, and this could be ideology or anything, is there a difference between, let's say, what, you know, you are teaching, and what someone like Lord Abba is teaching?
Yes, sir. There is a difference.
Okay, because I noticed that I'm just, because I don't want to put all.
If you really check code, right? Mm-hmm. If you really check what's going on, you know, Lord Abba speaks about Tashik Bay the same way that Haven Bullis does. The exact same way. Right? And where are they getting that from? They're getting that from Southern Poverty Law Center, Anti-Defamation League, you know, the individuals who are trying to make Moors seem like some anti-government whatever. That's exactly how Lord Abba, Taharka Bey, all these quote-unquote religiousized Moors, dogmatized Moors, the Moors who the temple is all that it's about, nothing else matters and all that stuff. The temple ain't what it's only about. There's bigger jurisdictions than Moor Science Temple. Again, that's inside stuff. Because these people who claim Moorish Science Temple never ever mention Moorish Divine and National Movement, then people are going to think Moorish Science Temple is all that it is. But then again, they're listening to Moors who aren't even scientists. They're just people who say that they're Moors. And they go to a place called Moorish Science Temple. But they don't exercise this like stand up to highwaymen and stuff like that. They don't exercise this as in, you know, stand up to individuals that are directly against birthright. They're going to try to debate about it. They're going to try to make themselves a name. Right? When we know as Moors, we have superior knowledge. Everybody, like we said, from the debate stuff was done with a mean. There should be no back and forth who's what right now. The only reason that this is going on still, one thing that Javen Bullock did say is that, you know, the culture that our people have is like a, a pay for something culture. You know, they want to learn, they want to pay $10 to go watch a stream. They want to learn, they want to pay to go whatever. And that's not what it's about. It's about you going and doing your research for yourself if you want to learn. It's not everybody that somebody says in a video is only a reference point for you to go check and fact check. And if they're not giving you reference points, they're probably not speaking facts, which is the case with majority of people who, you know, go against Moors. That when it's time to rebut or debate or whatever, they're talking to the dogmatized Moors who don't deal with law. So the people, so when that goes down, when the people see it, the people are looking at it like these guys are just talking church stuff again. Because Allah is mentioned and Islam's mentioned and they don't deal with any law or whatever. Which is really what the religion is. The religion is really law. Universal law, natural law, constitutional law, common law. That's really the religion, really, for Moors. Because I self law are master. So yeah, there's a big difference. And again, if you go to Canaanland Moors, and you get Canaanland Moors corrects Lord Abba. We got videos where we correct him. Taraka Bay, videos where we correct him. Anybody out there that says that they're Moors talking BS about the master teacher, Taj Street Bay, we're going to defend it. Because just like Noble Juwali, we honor that man. Because, you know, he brought us things that many of these other scholars didn't have the guts to bring. You know what I mean? So we defend them. If people talk BS, don't worry, we got something to say. You know, we can sit down and have discussions or whatever, but trust me, you know, he's not going to be coming to talk. Because you got stuff to do. You don't have time messing around online and stuff like that with people who have no life. You got lives out here. More's got lives out here. More's got farms and stuff that they got. You know, More's got buildings to build. More's out here playing online. But know that there's a big difference.
Okay.
There's a big difference. And
right.
Do not even think about putting all Moors in one category. You know what I mean? Because that's how the confusion.
It was something that
really,
it was something else that I didn't get a chance to ask because we kind of moved past it. But as far as when I heard you speak about bonds on birth certificates and marriage certificates. Before we get out of here, could you explain that to the people as well as myself?
Because the United States is a corporation pretending that they're government, right? They have to seek outside help in order to survive. Majority of the outside help that they receive is from international bankers because they can't go to any true governments because they're not a government. So when you look at, the teachings of the United States got sold out to the Jesuits and all that stuff, that's real. Because the Jesuits are the international bankers who were in control of the Federal Reserve. Who even when Kennedy was in power, was trying to eliminate the Federal Reserve, and that's why they killed him, because he was bringing back the gold standard. Which is going back to this whole theme of, you know, what is it that the people are getting caught up in? The people are getting caught up in thinking that these people are government, that they're not government. So when they get an instrument called a birth certificate, they think that birth certificate has to do with a child coming out of the womb and then onto the earth plane, and then in order for them to be recognized as a child, they get a birth certificate. But there's also a term in law, birth, that has to do with ships and cargo. B-E-R-T-H. So our people see B-I-R-T-H, but what's meant is B-E-R-T-H. And once you have that certificate, you're property. You're classified. You're numbered. That's why it has a number on it. Just like when you go to prison, you get a number because you're property of whoever gave you that number. And then every instrument that we get from them has a number. So that means we're registered all those different amounts of times with all these different instruments. That the corporations, because of us being in our own land, and now, you know, us not being who we are in our own land, which gives other people power to come here and pretend to be us in our own land because we don't want to be ourselves. It creates this ability for other people to come here and be progressive, and we've been here and we can't progress because they're not coming here with the instruments that keep them in slavery. They're coming here as a Chinese to be an American, you know, Hindustani to be an American, an Egyptian to be an American. A Congolese is African, but he's not coming here and being African American. But he's African. How come he's not African American when he comes here? Because he's not tied with the quote unquote bonds, which a bond is really a shackle mentally. Bond is not, you know what I mean? Bond implies slavery. Don't think more say bond. Yeah, you know, people are bonded and then, you know, your mind goes to some paper. No, we're talking about you're a slave. You're property to these people. You're bonded. They have you in bondage. Mental bondage, spiritual bondage, physical bondage, all at once. Based on these instruments. Based on, you know, a conscious individual. There's somebody who's conscious now. They know who they are, that they're going to go get a marriage certificate, to have some colonizer sign some paper that, you know, he confirms their union. That's Christian black codes. Because only slaves have licenses. Just go read the Christian black codes. 54 articles is not even too much. Read the Christian black codes and then look at the Christian black codes and relay that to parallel that with things that you see going on with black people right now, and tell me if they shouldn't consider correcting their status from this position of being property by having these instruments from so-called the devil or the white man. Go from there into how about having your own stuff? Imagine if everybody said, you know what? No license. Forget a license. You think they could arrest everybody? Or are they going to have to create something different to accommodate everybody? Because remember, everything that they do with those instruments is for them to make finance out of us. So if we stop using the instruments, or if we use the instruments with reservation of rights so they're not able to make that finance, then they get destroyed tomorrow. But our people have to be on the mindset to recognize that they're not dealing with the government. They haven't been dealing with the government since the 1900s, which is why Noble Drawley came and told all of our people that you're not Negro, black, colored, you're Moors. Get yourself out of that status and then start building for you and your posterity. But mainly for the young and unborn, because it's really not about us. It's really not about us benefiting. It's not really for us to be free. It's really for our posterity to be free. Right? And once we take our mindset from selfish, we need to have it right now, and start thinking like how the European and everybody else does, 500 generations behind us, then we'll realize how important it is to make sure that when we pass things down, we pass it down in our name, instead of passing it down in the slave name, which is going to give these people jurisdiction over it to take it from you after you leave this plane.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, I think this was a dope conversation. Like I said, I have had Lord Abba on one of my other channels. Also had a brother who goes by the name of Mercy L on tour. I think he was on this channel and the other Six Dynasty channel, as well as I had Taharka Bay on once as well. But I think, like, at the end of the day, sometimes, people say stuff that I do agree with. People do say stuff that I don't agree with. But my platform is always open to any of you brothers. And I will always, during the interview, allow you to get out. I won't, what you need to get out. I won't be combative or none of that, So I'm glad we was able to have, me and you was able to have dialogue today. So that way you can get an understanding of who I really am versus, watching the video and seeing me react to, say, whatever somebody else is saying. You know what I mean? Even though I may agree with some of the things that Javen may say, the Moorish brothers aren't my enemies. You understand what I'm saying? So,
no doubt.
At the end of the day, I learned some things about what y'all teach today.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Go ahead. I was just saying I learned some things about what y'all teach today.
Yeah, and really that's what it's about with us. You know what I mean? It's not about, people joining something or coming and getting things from, like you made the statement that, like, for example, like, we sell world passports. That's not a reality. You know what I mean? That's libel. You're not gonna go tell some lies like that on China, because you know that they'll take your head. And people look at, Moors and, this passive idea, like, we won't slow down intellectually. You know what I'm saying? Like, we will. We have the facts. You know what I mean? And again, when people like Lord Abba and these people come on, it's not like, they're telling all falsehoods or whatever. You know what I mean? They're coming with teachings of the Prophet and all that, but there's a broader perspective. And the broader perspective is getting our people back into the constitutional mindset, getting our people back into the universal law mindset, getting people to go back and start reading laws of and stuff like that. So you can actually see what were they on? What are they really getting at? That we're Aboriginal and Indigenous people, and we have to govern ourselves. That's what laws of Ma'at is about. You govern yourself. I shall not do this. I will not do this. Because that's self-governance, which is documented in the UN declarations, that there's people on the planet that have a right to govern themselves. So if the ancient Egyptians were governing themselves, and UN is saying that people have that right today, still have that right to govern themselves today. You know what I mean? Then they're talking ancient things. They're not talking some modern European concept like all these people are talking. When they say, Moors sell world passports, that's fraud. World Passport Service Authority sells world passports. Moorish Americans have nothing to do with World Service Authority passports, because you saw Yassin Bey with a World Service Authority passport. He did that on his own. That's not something across the board that Moors do, right? We even had classes where we addressed that, about their foundation and all that, and that's nowhere for Moors to be, even Yassin Bey. And we even put it out that he was obviously given false information by Moors if he's a Bey and he went for a World Service Authority passport. He's a jackass for doing that. Why are you going to them? Their offices in Washington, D.C. You know what I mean? Again, people are going to put stuff out that we'll agree with, but don't try to slick this and think we're not going to pick up on certain things. You know what I mean? Like, well, when Taj Tariq Day goes around, he has goons around him because Moors are ready to attack people. If you look at the Reggie, the Sharif Day debate, Moors were there. Moors were at the Alim debate in numbers to back Alim. Nobody was talking about Moors were goons and stuff then. You know what I mean? When it was just Sabir and Taj that was on Saw Never when they swapped Regia, right? But if you let Negro black color people tell it, of course the Moors lost. Of course the Moors didn't do good. Of course the Moors didn't stand their own, and whoever made Moors look like tough boys or whatever, because, you know, the Moors, that's not a reality. Every debate.
I think it's a consistent. I think the consensus is that Reggie took an L in that debate, though.
but I'm saying, right? Like, so if that's the consensus, right? There should be no more him talking. You don't get.
But those same people say that SETI won his debate. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but again, if we're looking at it, you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking bias. We're talking about the facts that were presented. You know what I mean? If we base it on the facts, Aline Bey used Seti's teacher to prove that we're Moors, when Seti's trying to prove that we're not Moors. How you mean? How did Seti win the debate when his own teacher knows that we're Moors?
Somebody
it's a farce.
Somebody in the chat room is asking about if you brothers use the Circle 7 Quran.
Yeah, we use the Circle 7 Quran, and it's not a plagiarization of the Aquarian Gospel. Because, again, you know, people like to give the European props when they feel convenient. So they're going to say that Noble Drew Ali plagiarized a European. Okay, well, if you research the Aquarian Gospel, it's going to tell you that this European Levi Dowling went to the Akashic Records to get the Aquarian Gospel. Everybody knows that the Akashic Records is the reservoir of intellect. And everybody knows that you need melanin to access that. So you're telling me that Levi Dowling could access it, but Noble Drew Ali can't? Come on, yo. Stop the BS. You tell me that this European could access the Akashic Records and download this book from the Akashic Records, but Noble Drew Ali, he's not going to work to the Akashic Records. He's going to listen to some European? Please, stop the BS. So that's a BS argument. Because both of them didn't get it from the Akashic Records. Both of them went to Tibet. And the Buddhists in Tibet is who gave them that literature. If the people would do their research and studying instead of listening to, you know, people who are trying to get their attention or get their views or whatever like that. Listen to the people who give you facts. Go, trust me. Do your research on Levi Dowling and his travels, and they'll tell you that he went to Tibet and got the stuff from the Tibetan monks.
All right.
So if you went and got it from the Tibetan monks, that means it's not a European. So did Noble Drew Ali plagiarize a European if he got it from the Tibetan monks? And then if you say, well, because the European has it now, yeah, he got it from the European, then you're a clown. Because that's Tibetan stuff. He got it from Tibetans, so it's Tibetans. So if Noble Drew Ali plagiarized him, he plagiarized the Tibetans. So Noble Drew Ali really plagiarized the Tibetans. And, you know, Tibetans are Asiatic, which are Moors, so Noble Drew Ali plagiarized his own stuff. Or Noble Drew Ali plagiarized his own stuff. Fiction. People telling stories with lack of knowledge, right? And then incompetent people or non-studied people going with what this incompetent person told them because it sounded good or because their PowerPoint made the words spin onto the page, so that means that they know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about.
All right.
Right?
Well, is there anything else
again,
you want to say to the people? And I want you to go ahead and let people know how they can find you on social media or YouTube, you know, elsewhere as well.
Well, one thing I want to, give thanks to you for opening up the platform and for sticking to your word of not having a biased platform. With regard to our people, you know, we're not saying don't listen to people and all that. Listen to whoever you want. It's your mind. You know what I'm saying? But don't take what certain Moors say as, you know, this is some fiction or whatever. Make sure you go fact check, especially when you're dealing with the likes of people who you hear Black, Negro, African conscious scholars talk negative about. So people like Taj Tariq Bey, you know, go watch some of his stuff. Fact check some of the things that he presents and see if he's talking some BS or is everybody who's telling you he's talking BS the ones really talking BS, right? Go to rvbaypublications.com. rvbaypublications.com. You don't have to buy anything. We're not sending you there to buy anything. They have stuff on there that they sell. We're telling you, don't buy anything. Just go to the site and research the free stuff. And again, fact check everything. See if it's legit, see if it's BS, and come to a realization in yourself. Are these people really talking BS who call themselves Moors, or are the people who against Moors the ones that's really talking BS? Right? And thirdly, what we're presenting is not up for debate or, you know what I mean, we have to prove anything. All we're doing is giving people some information so that they can take it and, you know, hopefully find some enlightenment, right? Because we can't save everybody. We're not trying to save everybody. All we're doing is presenting some information. You know what I mean? Again, we're appreciative of the brothers' unbiased platform where you don't have people able to call in and put in their little piece and stuff like that, because that's not what this is about. And lastly, don't forget, you can go on our YouTube page. The brother said that he watched 3 or 4 of our videos. We got 1,700 videos up there. So, you know,
I see y'all been rocking out over there.
1,700.
Yeah.
You probably need to check out some more stuff.
Yeah, I see y'all been rocking out over there, for sure.
It's Canaanland Moors on YouTube. And and another thing too, for people who might not know, right? Don't think that you see Canaanland Moors and that only means quote unquote Moors in Canada. Because one of the things that we did when we came into this information and we realized the disservice that the Moorish Science Temple of America has been doing with this religious perspective of, telling people they could belong or they can't belong because of a color or fez or a tie color or a shirt color or whatever. We eliminated all that BS, and anybody who wanted to be a member of Moorish Science Temple could be a member of our temple by having an honorary membership. So when we say Canaanland Moors, we're not just representing Moors that are in the north. We're also dealing with Moors all throughout what we would say is Morocco, that our people say United States, right? We deal with Moors all throughout that. We deal with Moors who are in Europe. We deal with Moors in the Netherlands and the Philippines who are coming into this information and want to tie themselves to what Noble Drew Ali established. So we open our doors to the world to have access to this information about the illustrious prophet that nobody ever wants to talk about, Noble Drew Ali. So honors to all the Moors worldwide, and again, honors to Brother Matadi L for taking the Mufti seat, you know what I mean, to make sure that things stay in line. Islam to the Moors in the chat that we're holding down the Mufti seat. And again, brother, give thanks to you too for, you know what I mean, once again, opening your platform and keeping it unbiased and allowing us to at least present our piece from our perspective to hopefully, give our people a broader perspective of what being a Moor is opposed to what they've been told.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming through. Like I said, definitely wanted to reach out, you know what I mean, and just like I said, give you a chance to come on and speak your piece, and you or any of the other brothers are more than welcome to come and build again whenever, or y'all want to invite me over, whatever, we can have a conversation, or you know what I mean. So just let me know, hit me up. You got my number and I got yours. You know what I mean. I know how to contact you on social media now, so you know, let's stay in touch.
Yeah, and one more reference just for people who, like, we didn't get to touch on this, but when we talk about the you know, people see Moors, and another thing that throws them off is that they think Moors are tied to Masonry. So you can also research Moors and Masonry. There's a website, moorsandmasonry.org, and you can get a book there called Moors and Masonry by one of the Moors. His name is Abdullah El Talib Mozi Bey, and he wrote a fairly extensive reference book dealing with this connection between what people would say is Masonry and this historically recognized people known as Moors. Just a quick excerpt from this book, page 206. This social malady, lack of self-knowledge, law, and history, particularly affects the socially neutralized, many mentally sleeping Moors, as well as the newly awakened descendants of the formerly powerful ruling Moors, who in these modern days bear the brands and tag appellations of Negroes, blacks, coloreds, etc. They are actually the true heirs to the lands called the Americas. They are the Beys, the Els, Days, Alis, and Owls, who are politically denied the truth of their nationality and birthrights. Clearly, the nationality and birthrights issue holds impacting revelations involving profound political, social, and economic ramifications. The truth of North America and world history will and must be revealed to the general public concerning the true reasons why the European colonial contract citizens of North American Masonic orders have created a shrine honoring the Moors. The modern Masonic orders are in actuality semi-duplicative extensions of our Moorish ancient mystery schools. So we'll close on that.
All right.
Peace and love again, bro.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Yep. Islam. All right, y'all heard it here. Canaanland Moors came through. We had that conversation. It was a good build, man. I like this face-to-face channel, man. I definitely like this. This is like probably my favorite channel out of the 4 that's active right now. We're going to get real active over on 6 Dynasty Reloaded on the 29th, because that's when we'll be able to go live over there. So October 29th is going to be a big day for us over there. Definitely going to go super hard. Probably 3 streams in one day. You already know how we do it. Shout out to all my moderators that showed up in the chat room. Shout out to my sister, Tawana Allen. She'll be with us later on tonight. So shout out to all the mods, everybody, the Wrench Gang in the building. Shout out to my MBK family for showing up. Shout out to my 6 Dynasty study group family for showing up. Shout out to the 6 Dynasty Facebook group members for showing up, and all the 6 Dynasty supporters in the building. Shout out to all the Moorish brothers that showed up in the chat room. I think it was brothers, I'm not for sure, brothers and sisters, but if so, brothers and sisters that showed up. We'll see if the conversation happens between the brother and Javen, you know what I mean? But stay tuned in. Tonight, it's official. We'll be doing Red Cup, you know what I mean? Red Cup Chronicles. Brother Chris will be on with me doing that. I think he got a couple of things that he wanted to talk about. So, yeah, we'll be back later on tonight. Nothing for 6 Dynasty Media 2 today. Won't be doing anything over there as of now. You know, some news break, I always will fire that up, though. All right, so I appreciate the conversation in the build. And this is what this particular channel was made for. You know what I mean? It was made for that. I got some new toys, though, man, that I'm over here working with. I got my phone on one. I got the tablet on the other so I can see the comments and make sure the stream is doing good. So I'm feeling real good, and these are the things, the upgrades and things that I make when I do, you know, with my monetization and stuff, my AdSense. I buy different things to make the stream better and where I can work my workstation a little better. Now, what I'm thinking about, family, is changing my desk, okay? I have a large desk. I got a large desk, right? This desk that I got is kind of small. I have my bookshelf right here. I have my desk that I have my laptop and my PC and everything right in front of me with the microphone and my speakers and things like that. And I have my tablet and my phone mounted on this desk, right? And I have a desk over here as well. What I'm thinking about doing is setting up the big desk. But the only thing about setting up the big desk, I like the background. I like, you know what I mean? I got my helmet back there on purpose. I'm a motorcycle rider. I love motorcycles or whatever. But I like the view of the back. I don't need a backdrop at this time. I like the view of the house, and the woodwork in this house is like beautiful. When they did the woodworking, I have woodwork all over this house, all over the windows. Every window in this house has this woodwork. All of the, you know, everything, even the steps is all wood. So I love that look. But what I'm thinking about doing is bringing down the big desk. Now the big desk isn't gonna fit where I'm at right now, so I would have to put the big desk over here. And what you are going to be staring at is this big window that I have right here, and it has blinds on it. So I'm in a dilemma. Do I want to actually use that as the background, and then when I do that, then I'm gonna be feeling like I need to get a backdrop. Now I'm gonna have to take this table out of here in order to fit the big desk in here. But I'm thinking about doing it. I'm not for sure. It's in the studio upstairs. I used to live stream from upstairs, so the big desk is up there. So I'm thinking about doing that. I'm not for sure yet. Or I might just take everything back upstairs. So maybe, you know, my moderators hit me up on Facebook and tell me what they think. Should I go back upstairs in that room and turn the desk around the way I need to be and use that wall as the backdrop? Or does it... I like the scenery though. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I don't mess around with the curtains. I like blinds. I don't know, family. I'll figure it out. Window equals backdrop. Alright, so we'll see. We'll see. I may switch that around and do it. I may switch it around and let y'all see how it looks tonight and go from there. You know what? I'm not going to be able to do it. I just thought about it. We got an issue. I ain't going to be able to do it. I'm going to have to do what I've been doing for now. Maybe Thursday or Friday I'll switch it around. Right now I'm going to have to leave it the way that it is. I forgot. I had to set my tripod up and for my lights and stuff. It's going to be a better situation. I am going to switch it. But I'm going to wait till Thursday to switch it around. I probably won't go live that way until Friday. Alright, so I don't even know why I brought that up. Alright, anyway, peace to the family. I'm out. I'm going to go. My son just came in town. So I'm going to go check on him, make sure everything cool. For some reason, he wanted to move back to Ohio. So I'm going to find out what's going on with that. Besides that, you know, it is what it is. Peace to the family. That's the wrong damn outro. You know what? I'm going to move that outro. Hold on, let me say this. I'm going to move that damn the intro and the outro. I'm going to move them around because I'm tired of clicking on the wrong one. Maybe I should name them because they both say intro. Maybe that's the problem. All right, peace, family.
Fuck a 9 to 5, I be after fast money. Don't try and catch up, you heavy like Bossy and Appuccino. We let the loud and D go. If it'll bring C-notes, just know these young niggas gon' stack chips like Pringles. I done had fucked up days and bad nights. It took a few L's trying to get my cash right. I can't slow down, I'm caught up in this fast life. And I ain't going home till I catch my last bite. These bitches mad trife, these niggas don't act right. I bet that AR make that ass act right. I've been trillin', I've been living a savage life, bagging white, trying to be rich in the afterlife, nigga.